In this video, we're going to be talking about evaluating functions and how to do that. So let's jump right in. So evaluating functions is probably the most common used thing by adults, and they don't even know. So let's say hypothetically you got a job right now, right? And I was like, hey, how much is your check going to be? There's a couple things that you need to know before you would know how much your check is going to be, right? So let's go and talk about it. So the first thing that you need to know is the input. Input, as far as when you get your job, is how many hours you work. Okay? How many hours you work will determine your output, which is going to be your check or your money. Okay? So let's give you this hypothetical situation. Hamilton decides to hire you to babysit. So let's draw a little baby. Yes, I'm a fantastic artist. Shoes. Make sure you draw this baby. Little hands. One piece of hair. There. That is a fantastic baby. So anyways, let's say Hamilton hires you to babysit, and this is what you're going to be making. So you're going to get paid $10 per hour. And then I'm going to also give you some money for snacks. I'll give you $20 for snacks. You can use it on snacks or you can keep it. It's up to you, okay? So let's figure out what kind of function we're going to get, okay? And as we go in, you're going to notice function notation. You guys are used to Y's and stuff, but function notation, we use f of x because this x right here will keep changing. Okay? So back to our example. F of x is going to equal, you're going to make $10 per hour. So that's going to be we're going to call this 10h. Plus you're going to get your $20 for snacks. Okay? That is going to determine everything. So let's go ahead and make a table to determine how much you'll make depending on how many hours you work, right? So on the X side of the table, this is your input side. This is how many hours you did or how many hours you input to get your paycheck. So that's going to be your input side, and this is going to be your hours. And depending on how many hours you input will determine how much output you're going to get. Or as an f of x or your check, your money. Okay? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, you work 2 hours. How much money are you going to get? Well, you're going to get your $10 an hour times 2 because you're going to get 2 hours. Plus, you're going to get your $20 for snacks. That's going to be 20 plus your other 20. That's going to be $40 if you work 2 hours. Let's say you worked 5 hours. So you're going to get your $10 an hour times your 5 hours. Plus, you're still going to get your $20 for snacks. So you made $50 from babysitting. Plus your $20 for snacks, that's $70. To see if you get this, I want you to pause the video right now, and I want you to tell me how much would you make if you worked 10 hours. Go ahead and pause the video now and tell me what you got. Now that you had the chance to pause the video, you should have got, well, I'm going to work $10 an hour for 10 hours. Plus my $20 for snacks. 10 times 10 is 100. Plus 20 is $120. That's essentially what a function is. It's you input something You keep the same equation every time, and it's going to keep changing based on what the input is. Okay? All right, so moving forward, when you get into some of the questions below, you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see linear, and that's just something like f of x equals 2x plus 1. Then you're going to see something that looks like, and the linear are the easy ones. Then you're going to see something that is called absolute value. And that's going to be something like f of x equals absolute value of x minus 2 plus 1 or something like that. And then you're going to see quadratic, which just means you're going to have something that's squared. Okay, and remember, I'm not sure if y'all remember this from 8th grade or not, but this means squared, that 2 means squared, and these two bars right here, those two mean absolute value. So let's talk about what absolute value is. Absolute value simply means whatever you put inside those two bars, no matter what comes out, the answer is positive. So let's say hypothetically, I told 2 students to guess my favorite number. And my favorite number happens to be 8. One student guessed 10. One student guessed 6. The question is, who was closer? Well, that student was 2 above. That student was 2 below. What absolute value is, it means, it says it's pretty much whatever that number is, it doesn't matter what the sign is. They are still both 2 away. So we don't put -2 away. We don't put +2 away. We just say 2. And we make everything positive. And we'll talk about more about that when we get in class. Okay? So let's say we have the equation for here. Let's do one. F of x equals the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 1. And then it'll say something like find f of -5. Okay? And then, so what happens is we have to put this -5 right here. So that means the absolute value of -5 minus 2 plus 1. Well, absolute value, so -5 minus 2 is -7. And the rule with absolute value is no matter what's inside, positive or negative, the answer is going to automatically become negative. So the absolute value of -7 is +7. So my answer here is going to be 8. Okay? And then over here, let's say I did the same thing. F of x, and then I want to find f of -1. So I'm going to do x squared plus 2x plus 1. And what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to put -1 squared plus 2 times -1 plus 1. Well, what is -1? And when something is squared, that means you multiply it times itself. -1 times -1 is +1. 2 times -1 is -2. So actually, I don't want this plus sign here. And then I have this +1 on the end. Well, 1 minus 2 is -1. plus 1, answer 0. So we're going to do a couple of these examples, a couple more of these examples here right now. So absolute value, remember, is no matter what is inside those bars, you put, you make it positive. And when you have a quadratic, all that means is that there's a squared. Anytime you have something squared, you multiply it times itself. Okay, let's get into some of these questions. And this is what you'll see in your work for the week, okay? So I got y equals negative 4x minus 6. Find y at x equals negative 2. So what that means is I have to plug in this negative 2. It says this is where x is, so we got to put that negative 2 right here. So that means it's going to be y equals negative 4 times negative 2 minus 6. Negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8 minus 6. So my answer is going to be y equals 2. So the input was negative 2. The output was positive 2. Let's move to the next one. I got to put this 3 where x is, which is right here. So I'm going to do y equals negative 4 times that 3 plus 4. Okay? Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12 plus 4. And then negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. So my input was 3. My output was negative 8. Okay, we're going to keep moving. Let's get to, here's some absolute value ones. Absolute value ones could be a little bit tricky. So let's see what this says. I got to put negative 5 where x is at. I'm going to put negative 5 right here. Y equals the absolute value of negative 5 minus 5 minus 4. And what students will do, they'll see negative 5 minus 5 and think that's 0. That is not correct. Negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10 minus 4. And again, anytime you have numbers inside the absolute value bars, that means that whatever's in there is going to become positive, okay? So that negative 10 is going to become a positive 10 minus 4. So my answer is 6. Now, let's say in this example, we had, I'm just going to throw in an example right here. Let's say find where x is at positive 6. So I'm going to do the same one. Absolute value of 6 minus 5 minus 4. And then y equals, and then 6 minus 5 happens to be absolute value of 1 minus 4. Well, that 1 has to remain positive. We do not switch the sign. Okay? So if the input was 6, the output would be negative 3, because this one right here, although it was already positive 1, it stays 1. Stays positive 1. If it's negative, it becomes positive. Okay? So that's that. All right, let's do this next one. Now, there's a difference. Now there's a negative on the outside. This is where you will get confused. So pay attention, okay? So f of x equals negative absolute value x minus 4 plus 6. And we got to find f of negative 3. Okay. You may want to distribute. Do not distribute here. Do not distribute. We're going to plug this negative 3 in for x. Okay, we do that part first. Okay. When there's a negative on the outside, we handle what's on the inside first and then handle that negative last. Because in the order of operations, we take care. Remember, the G was for grouping. And in that grouping was parentheses, brackets, absolute value bars, and square roots. This is the one we're working with right now. We got to take care of the absolute value bars first, okay? So I got f of x equals negative, and then negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7 plus 6. Well, negative 7, the absolute value of negative 7 is positive 7, but this negative comes along for the ride. Plus 6. So let me go ahead and highlight this. This part, this absolute value part, made this positive 7. But because this negative sign was on the outside, it came along for the ride afterwards. Okay? So my final answer, negative 7 plus 6, is going to be negative 1. Okay? So anytime there's a negative on the outside, you handle that one last. You attach that negative at the very end. Okay? Now we got 2 more questions to do, and then we're done. All right. So number 5. F of x. So we're going to plug in a positive 3 where the x is. Oh, there's 2 of them, right? So let's see what that looks like. F of x equals 3 squared minus 2 times 3 plus 1. 3 squared is just a number that multiplies to itself. So anytime you have something squared, it's multiplied to itself. So 3 squared is 3 times 3, that's 9. Minus 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1. 9 minus 6 is 3, plus 1. So the answer here is 4. So when I input 3, my output was 4. And on the final question, I got f of x. Now we're going to input 2. Where the x is at, oh, there's a negative on the outside, so don't get tripped up with that one. So we got negative 2 squared plus 4. So f of x is equal to negative, well, what's 2 squared? That's 4. And remember, let's go ahead and highlight this. This 4 part right here came from the 2 squared. This negative on the outside was because this was on the outside. And so when I end up with my negative 4 plus 4, that equals 0. So when my input is 2, my output is 0. Okay? If you have any further questions, see me in class. Also, don't hesitate to rewind this video and watch it again. And I will see you soon. Have a good one.